The fluorescent lights of the Chicago Memorial Hospital cast harsh shadows across Michael Sanderson's face as he stared at the mounting medical bills in his trembling hands. $47,542.68 for his daughter Emma's treatment. The same amount that would keep a roof over his family's heads for the next year. Sir, the payment plan options are on page 3, the billing clerk said, her voice distant as Michael's world collapsed around him. How had it come to this? 15 years at Midwest Manufacturing, employee of the month 6 times, passed up promotions to stay close to home for his kids. And now? A cardboard box with his belongings and a company restructuring letter to show for it. I'll figure something out, he mumbled, folding the papers and tucking them into his worn jacket. But what? 3 months behind on mortgage payments. His wife Sarah taking double shifts at the hospital. His oldest son wearing shoes with holes because new ones weren't in the budget. As Michael walked through the parking lot, his phone buzzed. A text message. Interview canceled. Position filled internally. The 20th rejection this month. Desperation has a way of bringing a man to his knees. For Michael, it would lead him to the maintenance department of the Grand Plaza Hotel, where he'd take the only job available, night janitor. The same hotel where billionaire philanthropist Marcus Rivera was hosting his annual charity gala. What Michael couldn't know as he mopped the marble floors that night was that an accidental encounter with Rivera would change everything. Not because of charity or handouts, but because 30 years ago, an act of kindness connected their families in ways neither man understood yet. Sometimes, the universe has a way of remembering what humans forget. The Chicago skyline glittered against the evening sky, a cruel contrast to the darkness settling over Michael Sanderson's small suburban home. The kitchen light flickered, another repair he couldn't afford, as he sat at the table, bills, spread before him like casualties of an invisible war. The smell of reheated pasta lingered in the air, a meal stretched for the 3rd night this week. Dad, is everything okay? 12-year-old Emma stood in the doorway, her thin frame swimming. In pajamas that had once fit properly, the medication for her autoimmune condition had caused weight loss, another worry that kept Michael awake at night. Everything's fine, sweetheart, he lied, quickly gathering the past due notices into a pile. Shouldn't you be in bed? You have a doctor's appointment tomorrow. Emma's eyes, wise beyond her years, lingered on the pile. Mom's still not home? Double shift, Michael explained, forcing a smile. She'll be home around midnight. Go on up. I'll check on you in a bit. After Emma disappeared upstairs, Michael reopened the eviction warning. 3 more weeks before they could be homeless. His severance from Midwest Manufacturing had run out faster than expected, devoured by Emma's treatments that insurance only partially covered. The kitchen door opened as Sarah entered, still in her nursing scrubs, exhaustion etched on her once vibrant face. Any calls about the applications? She asked, knowing the answer from his expression. Michael shook his head. Nothing yet, but I did get something. He hesitated. The Grand Plaza Hotel needs night janitors. It's minimum wage, but it's something until I find real work. Sarah crossed the kitchen and wrapped her arms around his shoulders from behind. It is real work, Michael, and we need it. 20 years of experience in manufacturing, and I'll be cleaning toilets, Michael whispered, the weight of failure crushing his chest. You'll be supporting your family, Sarah corrected firmly. That's what matters. Later that night, after Sarah had fallen into exhausted sleep, Michael sat by Emma's bed watching her labored breathing. On her nightstand sat a collection of celebrity magazines, her small escape from the reality of doctor visits and medications. The cover featured Marcus Rivera, the tech billionaire turned philanthropist, at his latest charity event. He seems like a good guy, Emma had told him once. He gives money to help sick kids like me. Michael gently tucked the blanket around his daughter. Tomorrow, he would swallow his pride and accept the janitor position. For Emma. For all of them. The next evening, Michael stood outside the Grand Plaza Hotel, its gleaming glass entrance intimidating in its opulence. A fleet of luxury cars pulled up, disgorging men in tuxedos and women in evening gowns. A banner across the entrance announced, annual Children's Health Initiative Gala hosted by Marcus Rivera. Michael walked around to the service entrance, where a bored security guard barely glanced at his newly issued ID badge. "Sanderson, orientation's down the hall. Get your uniform and cart. 6th floor needs cleaning after some rich guy's cocktail hour." As Michael changed into the gray uniform with maintenance embroidered on the chest, he caught his reflection in the locker room mirror. The face looking back seemed older, the eyes dimmed by circumstance. He thought about Sarah, working another overnight shift. About his teenage son Luke, who had quietly given up basketball because they couldn't afford the team fees. About Emma, who needed medications they could barely afford. "This is temporary," he told his reflection, not quite believing it, just until something better comes along. He couldn't know that something better was already in motion. In the presidential suite on the top floor, where Marcus Rivera was reviewing candidates for his new community initiative, searching for a face he'd never seen but had spent years trying to find. Subscribe now to see how Michael's journey unfolds and discover the unexpected connection between these two men. The presidential suite of the Grand Plaza Hotel exuded luxury from every surface, from the Italian marble floors to the hand-painted ceiling murals. Marcus Rivera stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, Chicago's nightscape creating a backdrop of twinkling lights behind him. At 45, Rivera carried his success with understated elegance. His custom suit was expensive but not flashy. His only visible indulgence, a vintage watch that had significance beyond its considerable value. The foundation approved all the applications from the Children's Hospital, his assistant Diane said, sliding a tablet across the desk. "And the community center in Westside is ready for the announcement next week." Marcus nodded, but his attention had drifted to an old photograph he always kept with him, a faded image of two men standing in front of a rundown garage. One was his father, bone-thin and proud in overalls. The other, a tall man with kind eyes, wearing a foreman's badge. 30 years, Marcus murmured. "We've searched for his family for 30 years. Diane, who had been with him since before the billions, since the days of his first struggling tech startup, understood the significance. The investigators have a promising lead on the Sanderson family. The son might still be in Chicago. "William Sanderson gave my father a job when no one else would look at an immigrant with broken English," Marcus said, touching the photograph. "Without him, we would have starved. And now you've built an empire," Diane finished. "Your father would be proud." Marcus replaced the photograph in his wallet. "He would be prouder if I found William's family, if I could repay the debt." Meanwhile, 6 floors below, Michael Sanderson pushed his cleaning cart down the plush hallway, following his supervisor's hurried instructions. His lower back ached from the unaccustomed work, his hands already raw from industrial cleaning solutions. "Presidential floor gets done first, always," the supervisor had barked. "Be invisible, be quick, and for God's sake, don't disturb the guests. Room 2601 is empty for the next hour while Mr. Rivera is at dinner. Get it done." Michael glanced at his watch, 8:37 p.m. At home, Sarah would be helping Emma with her breathing treatments. He imagined Luke doing homework at the kitchen table, the worries of a father displaced by the immediate demands of a janitor's role. Pushing his cart to suite 2601, he knocked softly, following protocol despite being told the room was empty. When no answer came, he used his key card and entered, catching his breath at the opulence. The suite was larger than his entire first floor at home. Moving efficiently, Michael began his work, trying not to think about the inequity between this space and the home he might soon lose. He was cleaning the bathroom when he heard the suite door open. Voices, a man and woman, entered, discussing something about community programs and funding. Michael froze. His supervisor had been wrong. Rivera had returned early. Quietly setting down his cleaning cloth, Michael tried to slip out unnoticed through the bathroom door, but in his haste, he knocked over a bottle of cleaning solution. The crash echoed through the suite. "Hello?" a confident voice called out. "Is someone there?" Michael stepped out, mortified. "I'm sorry, sir. I was told the room would be empty. I'll come back later." Marcus Rivera stood before him, not with anger, but curiosity. "You're new," he observed. "I know most of the staff here." "First day," Michael admitted, unable to meet the billionaire's eyes. Something fell from Michael's pocket, his wallet, landing open on the floor to reveal a family photo. Michael, Sarah, Luke, and Emma, taken before Emma's illness, before the layoff when smiles came easier. Marcus bent to retrieve it, his eyes catching on the photograph. "Beautiful family," he said, handing it back. Then his gaze sharpened. "What did you say your name was?" Michael Sanderson." The tablet in Marcus's hand slipped. His hand slipped, clattering to the floor. "Sanderson?" he repeated, a tremor in his normally composed voice. "From Chicago?" "Yes," Michael replied, confused by the reaction. "Born and raised." Marcus's eyes traveled to his assistant, who stood frozen in the doorway. "Diane," he said quietly, "I think we just found him." The suite fell into a strange, suspended silence. Michael shifted uncomfortably, acutely aware of his gray maintenance uniform against the backdrop of Marcus Rivera's world. The billionaire was staring at him with an intensity that made Michael wonder if he'd done something wrong beyond the unauthorized entry. "Sir, I really should go," Michael said, reaching for his cleaning cart. "I didn't mean to disturb you." "Wait," Marcus said, his voice carrying a quiet authority that stopped Michael instantly. "Your father, was his name William Sanderson?" A chill ran through Michael's body. His father had passed away 5 years ago after a brief but brutal battle with cancer. How could this man, this billionaire, know him? "Yes," Michael answered cautiously. Did he work at Central Manufacturing in the 1990s, as a floor manager?" Michael nodded, increasingly confused. "For almost 30 years, he retired just before he got sick." Marcus turned to Diane, who was already tapping rapidly on her phone, nodding as she verified something. "It's him," she confirmed softly. "All the details match." The suite suddenly felt too small, too intimate for this strange encounter. Outside, the windows, snow had begun to fall, silent flakes swirling against the Chicago darkness. The city lights blurred through the precipitation, creating halos of color in the night. "Mr. Sanderson," Marcus said, gesturing to the living area of the suite, "would you sit with me for a moment? Please." Every instinct told Michael to politely decline and return to his assigned tasks. He was already on thin ice, being found in a guest's room. But something in Rivera's expression, a vulnerability at odds with his public persona, made Michael nod and follow him to the seating area. "I apologize if this seems strange," Marcus began, pulling something from his wallet. "But I've been looking for your family for a very long time." He handed Michael a worn photograph. The edges were frayed, the colors faded by time and handling. Michael's breath caught in his throat. There was his father, younger than Michael had ever known him, standing proudly beside a thin man of Hispanic descent. They stood in front of an old auto repair shop, arms around each other's shoulders, both smiling widely. "That's my father on the right," Marcus said, his normally polished voice rough with emotion. "And yours on the left." Michael stared at the photograph, memories flooding back. Dad had this same picture in his workshop. He called it his reminder. "Reminder?" Marcus asked. "Of kindness," Michael explained. He said it reminded him that giving someone a chance could change everything. He looked up at Marcus, realization slowly dawning. "Your father was Eduardo, the man Dad hired when the factory owner didn't want to take a chance on immigrants?" Marcus nodded, eyes bright. "My father couldn't speak much English, had no formal education. Your father hired him anyway, taught him everything. When I was born, my mother was very sick. The medical bills..." He paused, collecting himself. "Your father paid them, anonymously. We only found out years later." Michael remembered his father's quiet generosity, how even in their modest circumstances, he always found ways to help others. The food baskets that would mysteriously appear on struggling neighbors' porches, the anonymous scholarship donations to the local community college. That sounds like him, Michael said softly, a lump forming in his throat. He never wanted recognition. When my father died 10 years ago, his last wish was that I find William Sanderson's family, to thank you, to repay the kindness. Marcus leaned forward. And now, by some incredible coincidence, you walk into my hotel suite. Michael shook his head. I'm just a janitor. Why? Marcus interrupted. Your employment records show 20 years in manufacturing. Production supervisor. Why are you cleaning hotel rooms? The question hit like a physical blow. Michael stared down at his raw, chemical-burned hands. The shame he'd been carrying for months rose up, threatening to choke him. Sometimes, he said finally, a man does what he has to do for his family. Marcus nodded, understanding in his eyes. I'd like to hear more about that, he said quietly. And about your family. Outside, the snow continued to fall, covering Chicago in a clean white blanket, as if preparing the city for new beginnings. The presidential suite felt surreal to Michael, a world away from the stack of past due notices on his kitchen table. The plush carpet beneath his feet, the subtle scent of expensive cologne in the air, even the crystal glasses that Diane had filled with water before discreetly exiting the room. Everything screamed of a life unattainable to people like him. Marcus sat across from Michael, having removed his suit jacket in a gesture that seemed designed to reduce the obvious disparity between them. The famous billionaire looked more human now, less like the glossy magazine images Emma collected. So, Marcus said, tell me about your family. Michael hesitated, years of pride making it difficult to voice his circumstances. The radiator in the corner hissed softly, the only sound in the weighted silence. I have a wife, Sarah. She's a nurse, he began, finding it easier to start with their accomplishments rather than their struggles. 2 teenagers. Luke is 16, plays basketball, or used to. And Emma, she's 12. Emma's the one who's ill, Marcus stated rather than asked. Michael's head snapped up. How did you? Forgive me, Marcus said quickly. After we identified your father as William Sanderson, we did some preliminary research on his family. Standard procedure when the foundation is considering assistance. The word assistance hung in the air between them. Michael felt heat rise to his face. Mr. Rivera. Marcus, please. Marcus, Michael corrected, the name feeling foreign on his tongue. I appreciate whatever connection you had with my father, but I didn't come looking for you, and I'm not looking for charity. Marcus nodded, respecting the boundary. Fair. Enough. But I'd still like to understand how the son of William Sanderson ended up cleaning hotel rooms at night. Something in the genuine interest of his tone broke through Michael's reserve. Perhaps it was exhaustion, or perhaps the emotional weight of seeing his father's photograph, but suddenly Michael found himself talking. Midwest Manufacturing downsized 3 months ago. 20 years of experience didn't matter when they could hire 2 college graduates for less than my salary. The words tumbled out now, releasing months of pent-up frustration. I've applied for 67 jobs, had 12 interviews, but apparently I'm either overqualified or underqualified, or too old or too expensive. Michael gestured to his janitor's uniform. Meanwhile, Emma's medications cost $1,800 a month after insurance. Our mortgage is 3 months behind. Sarah's working double shifts and His voice cracked. I took the only job that would hire me without asking questions. Marcus listened without interruption, without the pitying looks Michael had come to dread. When Michael finally fell silent, Marcus simply asked, And Emma's condition? Juvenile rheumatoid arthritis and associated immune complications. Michael replied, the medical terminology now familiar after countless doctor visits. She'll need treatment indefinitely. Marcus stood and walked to the window, looking out at the snow-covered city. My father died of preventable complications, he said quietly. We couldn't afford proper care until it was too late. Your father's help came after the damage was done. He turned back to Michael. I made a promise at his grave that no family I could help would suffer the same fate. I didn't tell you this for— I know, Marcus interrupted gently. But I'm not offering charity, Michael. I'm offering opportunity. My foundation has a new initiative, retraining experienced workers displaced by corporate restructuring, creating sustainable employment with companies that value experience over cost cutting. He returned to his seat, leaning forward with intensity. We need someone to lead the Chicago program, someone who understands both manufacturing and what these families are going through. Michael stared at him, understanding slowly dawning. You're offering me a job? I'm offering you a career, Marcus corrected, with fair compensation, comprehensive family health coverage, and the chance to help others in your situation. For the first time in months, Michael felt something unfamiliar stir in his chest. Hope. If this story of unexpected connection and second chances is touching your heart, make sure to subscribe to our channel now. The journey of Michael and Marcus is just beginning, and you won't want to miss what happens next in their incredible story. The morning light streamed through the windows of Michael and Sarah's kitchen, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air and the chipped paint on the cabinets that Michael had promised to fix before life intervened. Sarah sat across from him, at the table, still in her nursing scrubs from the overnight shift, her hands wrapped around a mug of coffee as if drawing warmth from it. Her eyes, though tired, were wide with disbelief. "Say that again," she said, slowly. Michael had barely slept, the events of the previous night feeling more like a dream than reality. Marcus Rivera, yes, that Marcus Rivera, offered me a job running his foundation's retraining program in Chicago. Outside, a garbage truck rumbled down their street, the mundane sound a stark contrast to the extraordinary nature of their conversation. Through the window, Michael could see their neighbor Mr. Peterson shoveling snow from his driveway, the ordinary world continuing as if nothing had changed, when for the Sanderson family everything had. "Because he knew your father?" Sarah asked, struggling to connect the pieces. "Dad gave his father a job 30 years ago," Michael explained again. "Paid for his mother's medical bills anonymously. Rivera's been looking for our family for years, to repay the debt." Sarah set down her mug, her expression shifting from shock to cautious hope. "What exactly did he offer? What's the position?" Michael pulled out a business card and a folder that Rivera had given him. "Director of Workforce Redevelopment for the Rivera Foundation, Chicago Division. Full benefits, including comprehensive health insurance that would cover all of Emma's treatments." He hesitated before adding, "and a starting salary of $120,000. The mug slipped from Sarah's fingers, coffee splashing onto the table. Neither of them moved to clean it. "That's more than both of our salaries combined," she whispered. "There's more," Michael continued, still processing it himself. "He wants me to start next week. There's an emergency housing assistance program that would cover our mortgage arrears and a signing bonus that would clear Emma's medical debt." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "This can't be real. Things like this don't happen to people like us." Michael reached across the table, taking her hands in his. Her fingers were chapped from constant washing at the hospital, her wedding ring loose on a finger that had grown thinner with stress. "Apparently they do. Sometimes." He squeezed her hands. "But I need to know what you think. Is this too good to be true? Should I be suspicious?" Sarah, always the practical one, wiped her eyes and considered for a moment. "What does he get out of it? There has to be something. He says my experience makes me perfect for the role. I know manufacturing, I know what these families are going through, and—" Michael paused, remembering Rivera's exact words. "He said he's repaying a debt, not creating a new one." The kitchen door swung open as Emma entered, still in her pajamas, her movements stiff from morning joint pain. "Mom? Dad? What's going on?" Michael and Sarah exchanged glances, silently agreeing not to share the full story until they were certain. "Just grown-up stuff, honey," Sarah said, rising to help Emma with her breakfast. "How are you feeling today?" "Okay," Emma shrugged, the brave front she always put on breaking Michael's heart. "Is Luke still asleep?" "Like a teenager on Saturday morning," Michael confirmed, forcing a lightness into his tone. As Sarah helped Emma prepare her breakfast and take her morning medications, Michael stepped outside onto their small back porch. The cold air bit at his face, a bracing sensation that helped clear his thoughts. From his pocket, he pulled out the photograph Rivera had given him. His father and Eduardo Rivera, arms around each other, the auto repair shop behind them. "Is this real, Dad?" he whispered to the image of his father. "Is this your doing, somehow?" A cardinal landed on the snowy railing, its brilliant red plumage startling against the white backdrop. It cocked its head, studying Michael with a bright black eye before flying away. Michael watched it go, remembering how his father used to say cardinals were messengers. With sudden clarity, Michael knew what he needed to do. The Rivera Foundation headquarters occupied the 15th floor of a gleaming downtown office building. As Michael stepped out of the elevator on Monday morning, dressed in his only suit, purchased 8 years ago for a cousin's wedding, he felt like an imposter. The reception area featured sleek minimalist furniture, muted earth tones, and a wall-size photograph of children from around the world, their faces alight with hope. "Mr. Sanderson?" A professional-looking woman approached, hand extended. "I'm Jennifer Abrams, HR Director. We're so pleased you've joined us." Michael shook her hand, still half expecting someone to tap him on the shoulder and tell him there had been a mistake. The weekend had passed in a blur, telling Luke and Emma about the opportunity, their initial disbelief mirroring his own, receiving the signing bonus directly into their account, Sarah crying when she paid off Emma's medical bills online, and then the flurry of paperwork, background checks, and employment agreements. "Mr. Rivera asked me to get you settled," Jennifer continued, leading him through the office. "Your team is excited to meet you." "My team?" Michael echoed. "The Workforce Redevelopment Division. 6 staff members, and you'll have authority to hire 4 more. She gave him an appraising look. "Mr. Rivera doesn't usually fast-track positions at your level. You must have made quite an impression." Before Michael could respond, they turned a corner and entered a conference room where Marcus Rivera stood talking with a group of people. The billionaire broke into a smile when he saw Michael. "Here's our new director," he announced, crossing the room to shake Michael's hand. "Everyone, this is Michael Sanderson, the perfect person to lead our most important initiative." The room buzzed with introductions, program coordinators, community liaisons, research analysts, all now reporting to Michael. Their enthusiasm seemed genuine, but as Michael nodded and smiled, a cold weight of doubt settled in his stomach. What did he know about running a foundation program? About managing a team of professionals with advanced degrees? "You look overwhelmed," Marcus observed quietly as the others returned to their conversations. "Because I am," Michael admitted. "I supervised machine operators, not foundation staff. I don't have the qualifications for this." Marcus guided him to the window, away from the others. Outside, Chicago's skyline stretched toward Lake Michigan, the water a steely blue under the winter sky. "Do you know what the unemployment rate is for workers over 40 who've been displaced from manufacturing jobs?" Marcus asked. "High," Michael answered. "I lived it." 62% never find equivalent employment," Marcus continued. "They end up like you, taking whatever they can get to survive, their experience wasted, their families suffering." He turned to face Michael directly. "I don't need another foundation executive with an MBA who's never worked a real job. I need someone who understands what these families are going through, someone who can look program participants in the eye and say, 'I've been where you are.'" The sincerity in Rivera's voice was convincing, but still, Michael hesitated. "What if I fail? What if I can't do this?" "Then we adjust," Marcus replied, simply. "I didn't build my company by expecting perfection from day one. I built it by finding good people and giving them room to learn and grow." He smiled, "Just like your father did for mine." Across the room, Jennifer was organizing folders, preparing for the official welcome meeting. The team members chatted, among themselves, occasionally glancing curiously at Michael. "Besides," Marcus added, "you're not doing this alone. Everyone here wants you to succeed." A sudden memory surfaced. Michael's father teaching him to ride a bicycle, running alongside, saying, "I'm not holding on anymore, son. You're doing it yourself." The familiar ache of missing him mingled with a new sensation. The feeling that somehow his father was still helping him find his way. Michael squared his shoulders and nodded. "Okay, let's do this." As they rejoined the group, Michael noticed a woman slipping into the conference room, briefly catching Marcus's eye. The look that passed between them made Michael curious, but before he could ponder it further, Jennifer called the meeting to order. "Welcome to your first day, Mr. Sanderson," she announced. "Let's get started on changing some lives." 3 weeks into his new position, Michael's office at the Rivera Foundation had begun to feel less foreign. He'd added a few personal touches, a family photograph on his desk, a ceramic mug Emma had made in art therapy, and most significantly, a framed copy of the photograph showing his father with Eduardo Rivera. Its presence grounded him on days when the learning curve seemed impossibly steep. Outside his window, Chicago was emerging from winter's grip. The late February sun had more strength now, melting snow from rooftops and bringing the first hints of spring to the city. Inside, Michael was reviewing applications for the Foundation's first cohort of retraining participants when his phone buzzed. "Mr. Sanderson?" his assistant called through the intercom. "Ms. Diane Chen is here to see you. She says it's important." Michael frowned. Marcus Rivera's right-hand woman rarely visited the Foundation offices, preferring to coordinate with him via email or conference calls. "Send her in, please." Diane entered, her usual composed efficiency evident in everything from her streamlined outfit to her precise movements. She closed the door behind her, an unusual precaution that immediately put Michael on alert. "Is everything okay?" he asked. "Is there a problem with the program?" "The program is exceeding expectations," Diane replied, taking a seat across from him. "Marcus is very pleased with your progress." Relief washed over Michael. Despite his initial doubts, he'd thrown himself into the work, often staying late to master the details of workforce development grants, corporate partnerships, and community outreach strategies. Sarah had joked that she saw him less now than when he'd been working night shifts. "Then what brings you here?" "Here?" Michael asked. Diane placed a slim folder on his desk. "There's something Marcus hasn't told you, something I believe you should know." Michael stared at the folder, unease creeping up his spine. The office suddenly seemed too quiet, the hum of the heating system the only sound in the room. "What is it?" "The connection between your father and Eduardo Rivera wasn't a coincidence," Diane said carefully. "Nor was your employment at the Grand Plaza Hotel the night you met Marcus." Michael's unease deepened. "What do you mean?" "Marcus has been searching for William Sanderson's family for 10 years, Diane explained. "When we finally located you, 3 months ago we discovered your situation. The layoff, your daughter's medical bills, the mortgage issues." The implication of her words hit Michael like a physical blow. "Are you saying Marcus engineered our meeting? That none of this was chance?" Diane nodded. "The night maintenance position was created specifically for you. The hotel management was instructed to hire you immediately. Marcus arranged to be in his suite at precisely the time you would be cleaning it." Michael sat back, struggling to process this revelation. Outside his window, a construction crane swung slowly across the skyline, building something new against the blue sky. Inside, everything he thought he knew was being dismantled. "Why the deception?" he asked finally, his voice tight. "Why not just approach me directly?" "Because Marcus knew you wouldn't accept charity," Diane answered simply. "He needed to create a situation where you could accept help without losing your dignity." Michael stood abruptly, anger flaring. "By manipulating me? By creating some elaborate fiction?" "The connection between your fathers is real," Diane said firmly. "Every word Marcus told you about that was true. William Sanderson did save Eduardo, Rivera's family. Marcus has been trying to repay that debt for years." "But the job," Michael demanded. "Is that real? Or am I just a charity case with a fancy title?" Diane's expression softened slightly. The original plan was to offer you financial assistance disguised as employment. But once Marcus met you, everything changed. She gestured toward the stack of applications on Michael's desk. You've proven yourself more valuable than anyone anticipated. The program is succeeding because of you, not despite you. Michael sank back into his chair, conflicting emotions warring within him. Relief that his position wasn't entirely a sham. Anger at the manipulation. Confusion about what to believe. "Why are you telling me this now?" he asked. Diane stood, straightening her jacket with precise movements. "Because Marcus is planning something else. Something bigger. And I believe you deserve to know the whole truth before it happens." As she turned to leave, Michael called after her, "What is he planning?" Diane paused at the door. "He's finally found a way to fully repay his father's debt to yours. The board votes tomorrow." The Rivera Foundation boardroom hummed with hushed conversations as Michael slipped into a seat at the back. He hadn't been invited to this meeting, but after Diane's cryptic warning, he decided to attend anyway. If something concerning him was being decided, he needed to hear it firsthand. The room fell silent as Marcus Rivera entered. Unlike his usual business attire, today he wore a simple button-down shirt and slacks, giving him a more approachable appearance. Michael noticed that he carried the same worn photograph of their fathers that now sat framed on Michael's desk. "Thank you all for coming," Marcus began, his voice carrying easily through the space. "Today we're voting on a new initiative I've proposed, the William Sanderson Legacy Fund." Michael stiffened at the mention of his father's name. Around the table, board members exchanged glances, some curious, others concerned. "Marcus," one older man said cautiously, "while the foundation certainly has the capital for another program, I'm concerned about diluting our focus. We've just launched the Workforce Development Initiative." "This isn't a separate program," Marcus clarified. "It's an endowment specifically designed to support families facing catastrophic medical expenses while dealing with job displacement." He placed the photograph on the table. 30 years ago, William Sanderson saved my family when my father lost his job and my mother needed medical care we couldn't afford. Today, I'm proposing we allocate $50 million to ensure other families receive the same chance we did." A murmur ran through the room. Michael felt the blood drain from his face at the figure. $50 million bearing his father's name? "The fund would operate alongside our workforce initiatives," Marcus continued, "providing bridge support for housing, medical care, and education until displaced workers can re-establish themselves." As the board discussion continued, Michael's mind raced. Was this Marcus's true motivation all along? Not just offering him a job, but creating a permanent legacy in his father's name? The scale of it was overwhelming. After 40 minutes of questions and deliberation, the board voted. The William Sanderson Legacy Fund was approved unanimously. As board members filed out, Marcus finally noticed Michael in the back of the room. Their eyes met, and Marcus nodded slightly as if he'd expected him to be there. Once the room had emptied, Marcus approached. "I suppose Diane told you," he said, not sounding surprised or angry. "About how you manipulated our meeting?" "Yes." Michael stood to face him directly. "And now this? $50 million with my father's name on it? What am I supposed to make of that?" Marcus sighed, suddenly looking tired. "Sit with me, please." They took seats at the now empty boardroom table. Through the windows, afternoon light cast long shadows across the polished surface. In the distance, Lake Michigan stretched like a sheet of hammered silver. "I owe you an apology," Marcus began. "The way we arranged our meeting wasn't right. I was so focused on finding a way to help that I didn't consider how it would feel from your perspective." "Why not just tell me the truth from the beginning?" Michael asked. "Would you have accepted my help?" Marcus countered. "If I'd approached you directly, offered money or a job outright." Michael wanted to say yes, but honesty compelled him to shake his head. "Probably not. Pride is a hard thing to overcome." "I know," Marcus said quietly. "My father was the same way. It took tremendous courage for him to accept your father's help." He slid the board proposal across the table to Michael. This fund isn't about charity. It's about justice, about recognizing that good people sometimes fall through the cracks, through no fault of their own. Michael flipped through the document, noting the careful structure that preserved recipients' dignity while providing genuine assistance. It was exactly the kind of program his father would have supported. "Why my father's name?" he asked finally. "Why not your father's?" Marcus smiled slightly. "Because Eduardo Rivera already has buildings named after him. He was lucky enough to see his son succeed. William Sanderson deserves to be remembered too." For the first time since learning about the manipulation, Michael felt his anger begin to fade. Whatever Marcus's methods, his intentions seemed genuine. "There's one more thing you should know," Marcus added, "about Emma's medical care. The Pediatric Research Wing of Chicago Memorial Hospital gleamed with state-of-the-art equipment and bright, welcoming colors designed to put young patients at ease." Michael and Sarah followed Dr. Abigail Winters down a corridor, Emma walking between them, her steps measured but stronger than they had been in months. "The clinical trial results have been remarkable," Dr. Winters explained, pulling up images on a tablet as they walked. 87% of participants showed significant improvement in joint mobility and reduced inflammation markers within 12 weeks. Sarah, with a nurse's trained skepticism, asked, "And the side effects?" Emma's previous medications caused serious immune suppression. "Minimal compared to conventional treatments," Dr. Winters assured her. "The biologic targets only the specific proteins causing the inflammation without compromising overall immune function." They entered a consultation room where, to Michael's surprise, Marcus Rivera waited. He stood when they entered, smiling warmly at Emma. "You must be the famous Emma," he said, extending his hand. "Your dad talks about you all the time." Emma, initially shy, brightened at being addressed directly rather than talked about. "Are you really Mr. Rivera? From the magazines?" "Guilty? As charged," Marcus laughed, "though they Photoshop out my gray hairs." As Emma and Marcus chatted easily about her interest in science and technology, Michael pulled Dr. Winters aside. "How did Emma get selected for this trial? The waiting list is typically years long." Dr. Winters glanced toward Marcus. "The Rivera Foundation is the primary funding source for this research. They requested priority consideration for the daughter of their workforce director." Another piece of the puzzle fell into place. Michael looked at Marcus, who was now showing Emma something on his phone. Photos of the honeybee conservation program he'd established on his company's campus. "He never mentioned this," Michael said quietly. "He was quite insistent that we evaluate Emma on her medical merits alone," Dr. Winters replied. "She qualified for the trial regardless of his recommendation. Her case profile is exactly what we're studying." Across the room, Sarah had joined Emma and Marcus's conversation, her initial reserve melting as she asked detailed questions about the treatment protocol. The sunshine, streaming through the windows illuminated the scene. His family and Marcus Rivera, connected by circumstances that still seemed impossible. Later, as Emma underwent her preliminary evaluation with the research team, Michael, Sarah, and Marcus waited in the hospital courtyard. The early spring day had brought crocuses pushing through the soil in planters, their purple and yellow blooms defiant against the lingering chill. "You should have told me about arranging Emma's treatment," Michael said, breaking the contemplative silence. Marcus shook his head. "I didn't arrange it. I simply made sure her case was reviewed promptly. The medical team selected her based on her condition." "Still," Sarah interjected, "we should have been informed." "You're right," Marcus conceded. "I've developed a habit of trying to fix things from behind the scenes. It's not always the right approach." Michael studied the man beside him, a billionaire who could move mountains with a phone call, yet who carried his father's worn photograph in his wallet. For all his wealth and power, Marcus was still the son of an immigrant who never forgot where he came from. "My father used to say that how you help matters as much as the help itself," Michael said. "That preserving someone's dignity was as important as meeting their needs." Marcus nodded, recognition in his eyes. "My father said your father told him the same thing when he offered him that first job." I'm not giving you charity, Eduardo. I'm giving you an opportunity to earn what your family needs. Sarah reached over and took Michael's hand. That sounds exactly like something your dad would say. A comfortable silence fell between them, broken only by the distant sounds of the city and the closer chirping of sparrows in the courtyard trees. After a while, Marcus spoke again. I've made mistakes in how I've handled this, Michael. Trying to repay a debt while maintaining control of how it's repaid, that's not real generosity. No, Michael agreed, but neither is refusing help when it's genuinely offered. He met Marcus's gaze directly. I think we've both learned something from our fathers. The door to the courtyard opened as Dr. Winters appeared with Emma, both smiling. Good news, the doctor called. Emma's been officially accepted into the program. We can begin treatment next week. Emma broke into a run. Not the careful movement they'd grown accustomed to, but the spontaneous rush of a child with hope. 1 year later, the William Sanderson Community Center opened its doors in the heart of Chicago's West Side. The autumn sun shone brilliantly on the red brick building as a sizable crowd gathered for the ribbon-cutting ceremony. Television cameras captured the moment as Michael and Marcus stood side by side, golden scissors poised at the red ribbon stretched across the entrance. This center represents more than just a building. Michael addressed the crowd, his confidence as a public speaker having grown substantially over the past year. It represents the belief that everyone deserves a second chance, that no family should have to choose between healthcare and housing, and that the experience of our older workers is an asset, not a liability. The assembled crowd, program. Participants, foundation staff, community members, and Michael's family applauded warmly. In the front row, Emma stood tall, no longer stooped by pain, her recent growth spurt making her nearly as tall as her mother. Beside her, Luke wore the navy blue blazer of his university's honors program, home for the weekend to support his father. 1 year ago, two families connected by a 30-year-old act of kindness came together again, Michael continued. Today, over 300 displaced workers have been retrained and placed in new careers through our program. 417 families have received medical assistance through the William Sanderson Legacy Fund. He gestured to the building behind him. And this center will ensure that support continues for generations to come, offering job training, childcare for working parents, healthcare navigation, and a community where dignity and opportunity go hand in hand. As applause swelled again, Michael and Marcus cut the ribbon together. The doors opened and the crowd began moving inside to tour the facilities. Sarah approached, wrapping her arm around Michael's waist. Your father would be so proud, she whispered, tears in her eyes. Michael nodded, too emotional to speak. Over the past year, everything had changed. Emma's participation in the clinical trial had been remarkably successful, her condition now managed with minimal medication. Luke had received a full scholarship to university. Sarah had reduced her nursing hours, taking a position at the community center's health clinic instead. Their mortgage was not only current, but ahead of schedule. As the crowd dispersed inside, Michael found himself alone with Marcus in the center's sunlit atrium. A plaque on the wall featured side-by-side photographs, William Sanderson and Eduardo Rivera in front of the auto shop, and beside it, Michael and Marcus at the Foundation's annual gala. I received another letter yesterday, Marcus said, breaking the contemplative silence. A family in Detroit. Their daughter needs specialized surgery, and the father lost his job when the automotive plant downsized. Send me their information, Michael replied. We can bring them into the program. Marcus smiled. Already done. They're meeting with our Detroit team on Monday. Around them, the community center hummed with activity, program participants, touring the training facilities, children exploring the daycare area, healthcare navigators preparing their offices. What had begun as one man's attempt to repay a debt had grown into something neither of them could have imagined. Your father once told mine that kindness wasn't a transaction, Marcus said, studying the photographs. That you couldn't really pay it back, you could only pay it forward. Michael nodded, remembering his father's quiet wisdom, the lessons taught through actions rather than words. I think they'd be satisfied with how we've interpreted that philosophy." As they turned to join the others, Michael spotted Emma across the atrium, deep in conversation with Dr. Winters, who had become her mentor. The 12-year-old who had once collected celebrity magazines was now talking animatedly about her dream of becoming a medical researcher. "You know," Michael said, "a year ago, I was cleaning hotel rooms and wondering how I'd keep a roof over our heads. Now I'm running a program that's changing hundreds of lives." "Including your own," Marcus observed. "Especially my own," Michael agreed. "But not in the way you might think." He looked around at the center, at the families being helped, at his own family thriving. "I've learned that accepting help doesn't mean losing dignity. Sometimes it means gaining purpose." Marcus clasped his shoulder, no longer the billionaire, and the janitor, but simply two men carrying forward their father's legacy of kindness. "I think that's a lesson worth sharing," Marcus said. "Don't you?"